Hey Chanakyans of grade 7, welcome to the video session. In this video, we are going to learn geography, chapter 7, that is about human environment, settlement, transport, and communication. Children, before start the lesson, I would like to tell you a story, the motivational story. Would you like to hear story? I hope in your small age you might have listened some stories. So to be bit interested, to bring some interest in yourself, I would like to tell a story. Shall we? Yes. Yes. Just explore the picture, children. What can you see in this? A lots of balloon on the floor, isn't it? Yes. One day a teacher gave a balloon to every student and who had to inflate it. She asked the students to write their name in the balloon and throw it in the hallway. The teacher then mixed all the balloons. So she mixed all the thrown balloons, and the students were given 5 minutes to find their own balloon. The teacher was asked the student to find their own balloons. Despite a hectic search, no one found their balloons. At that point, the teacher told the students to take the first balloon that they found and hand it over to the person whose name was written on it. Within 5 minutes, everyone had their own balloons. You know what we can learn from this story? The teacher said to the students, these balloons are like your happiness, or commonly it can be happiness. We will never find it if everyone is looking for their own happiness. But if we care about other people's happiness, we will find our own too. How inspiring it is, isn't it? So, in our day to day life, we have to give happiness to the others. When you give the happiness to others, you will get your own. Now, shall we start our lesson? Yes. Yes, children, let's see what are the topics we are going to explore in this lesson. Okay, the concept of this lesson is first introduction, settlements, types of settlements, transport, communication, means of communication, and we are going to recapitulate the lesson at the end. Okay, yes. So, first let's see the introduction. Have you ever wondered how the early human developed from such type of lifestyle? Yes. How did the early humans lead their life during such time? No, see here, the early humans were entirely depend on nature. They were entirely depend on nature, and even they were dependent for food, for clothing, and for shelter. Okay, and they were depending the nature. And however, as time passed, they learned new skills. They learned new skills, that is to grow food, to build houses, and developed means of transport and communication. Okay, and let's see early human settlements. Early humans lived on trees and in caves. They started to grow crops and domesticated animals. Later, they started living a settled life. They started living a settled life. Early civilizations. We are going to learn early civilization. Early civilization developed near the river valley because water was available and land was fertile. Okay, and some of the early river valley civilizations are Harappan civilization and Chinese civilization. Is it clear? Yes, let's see the settlements. It is more or less a permanently inhabited place. It means the totality of the human community with all the social, material, organizational, and spiritual cultural elements that sustain it. Okay, the settlement of a region reflects the relationship between the human and the environment. Human settlements can be divided into two. They are early stage and modern stage. So by seeing the picture itself, you can identify the different lifestyle of the human, isn't it? Yes. First, let's see types of settlements. They are temporary settlements and permanent settlements. Now let's see the temporary settlement at first. Temporary settlement. These are occupied for a short duration. People living in deep forest and mountains often dwell in such settlements. The occupations of people living in temporary settlements are hunting, gathering, shifting cultivation, and transhumance. Okay. Yes, next let's see what is the temporary settlement. Now you can see the hut and the caravan, isn't it? Yes, this is not permanent one, this is the temporary one. Okay, and now let's see the transhumance, which means it is the seasonal movement of the people. It is the seasonal movement of the people. The people who rear animals move in search of new pastures for their cattle with the season changes. Okay, permanent settlement. This is the permanent settlement, how we are living nowadays. Okay, more and more people today are living in the permanent settlements. The site, the place where a building or a settlement develops in, called its site. The selection of a site is based on favorable of climate, availability of water, suitable land, and fertile soil. The urban settlements are a collection of dwellings located in an urban area is called urban settlement. The urban settlement, people living here are engaged in manufacturing, trading, and services. 175 cities across the world have 1 million populations each. Today, 48% of the world's population lives in the urban settlement. In 1800s, only 3% were living in the urban areas. Depending on the size, services available, and the functions rendered, urban centers are classified as towns and the cities. The towns are small and the cities are large urban settlements. Let's see town. Towns are small urban settlements as compared to the cities. A town is large than a village but smaller than a city. Towns have special functions, that is manufacturing, retail, wholesale, trade, and professional services. Let's check your knowledge, children. This is time to check your knowledge, what you have learned so far. What is the seasonal movement of people with their livestock in search of poachers, known as the clue? Seasonal movement of livestock. That is, can you guess the answer? Yes, the answer is D, transhumance. It is the seasonal movement of the people. People who rear animals move in search of new pastures for their animals with the season change. Now let's see the types of urban settlement. We can classify the urban settlement into three categories. They are compact settlement, scattered settlement, rural settlement. First, let's see the compact settlement. This kind of settlements are a large number of houses or built very close to each other. It develops along with the river valley and the fertile plants. Next, let's see the scattered settlement. The houses are spaced far apart from each other. A places of worship or a market binds the settlement together, and it is found mostly in hilly tracts. Let's see the rural settlement. This type of settlement is closely and directly related to land. It is relatively small in size. The primary activities or the main occupation in this kind of settlement. Now let's see the factors affecting the growth of rural settlement. The first factor, water supply. Rural settlements are located near water bodies such as river, lake and spring where water can be easily obtained. Land. People chose to settle near fertile lands with fertile soil as it is suitable for agriculture. The upland, it is chosen to prevent damage to house and loss of life. Is it clear? Yes. Now let's see the problems faced by rural settlements. The inadequate supply of drinking water, the water-borne diseases, the droughts and flood occur very often, the absence of irrigation, absence of toilet and garbage disposal facilities, the poorly equipped infrastructure will be there in the urban settlement. The environment and settlement. People build houses to suit their environment. In the regions of heavy rainfall, they have slanting roofs. So, children, in this picture, you can see the house with slanting roof, isn't it? Yes. Now, the places where water accumulates in the rainy season, houses are constructed on a raised platform or stilts. So you have learned the types of houses, the houses one among it, isn't it? Yes. The houses on stilt. Thick and mud walled houses with thatched roof are very common in the area of hot climate. So in this picture can you see the rough walled house? Yes. The other one is igloos. The igloos are generally in the form of a dome constructed from blocks of ice. They are permanently constructed by the people in Canada's Central Africa and Greenland regions. Okay, these are the igloos. Now let's move on to the very different topic from the first part, that is transport. Which means it is a means by which the people and goods move one place to another. The movement of resources from the source to the main destination needs a good means of transportation. So if anything need to reach the customer, we need the main thing, that is the transportation. Is it clear? Now you can explore this picture. By exploring this, you can see the transportation through ages. In the beginning, they have started with the stone. After that, they made the wheel in wood. After that, in the rubber. Later on, we are getting the tires, isn't it? Yes, these are the transport through age. Just explore the images. Yes, children, now let's watch a video related to modes of transport. Yes.
Come, children, let us explore different modes of transport. Everywhere we look around, we see different vehicles. We can travel and carry goods from one place to another. This process is known as transportation. The major modes of transport are roadways, railways, move on their own to travel. Slowly, they learned to ride horse and started carrying goods from one place to another on animals' back. In search of new lands, they made boats and started using them for transportation through waterways. Gradually, people learned to give shapes to their boats by imitating the shapes of the animals living in water. A great change in modern modes of transport came with the invention of wheel. Animals were used to pull vehicles that moved on wheels. With the beginning of the 19th century, steam engine was introduced, which revolutionized the world. Apart from it, motorized boat, ship, and aeroplane came into picture and became popular means of transportation. As time changed, transportation system became more advanced with the introduction of electric train and supersonic aeroplane.
Aeroplane. Nowadays, metro and monorail have become the convenient way of transportation in the cities. Over time, transport has changed its form, but it has provided us better and safe traveling.
Yes, I hope you enjoy the video, children. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is importance of transport. The world has become a global village. Transport decides the pace of the economic development, and the area of trade influence has increased. Trade has changed from the local to the international level, and this has increased the amenities of life. India is well linked with the rest of the world. See the transportation in the early days. People used animals to carry their goods. The different animals were used for transportation in different countries. And even now we are using the animals for the transportation. Some countries are still using the animal for the transportation purpose. See, by seeing this image, this round piece of wood brought relevation around the world. Can you guess what it is? Yes, that is the wheel in the early stage. The invention of wheel made life easy. Let's move on to roadways. Most commonly used means of transport are roadways, the most suitable for short distance means of transportation is roadway. The plains have dense road networks. They are can be divided into two types, that is metalled or paka road, or unmetalled, that is kacha road. This roads built underground also. If it is undergrounded, that can be called subways or underpath. That flyovers are also there, built over raised structures. The first picture you can see the subways. In the second picture you can see the flyover. So if you have ever visited Coimbatore, you can see the flyover roads, isn't it? Yes. Now let's explore the India road by watching a video. Shall we?
Transport plays a vital role in our day-to-day lives. The modernization of transport is a lifeline for a nation and its economy and offers efficient network for local, national and global trade. India has the second largest road network in the world, spanning over 3 lakh kilometers. The Indian road network consists of national highways spanning over 79,000 243 kilometers. State highways with the span of 1,31,899 kilometers. Major district roads spanning over 4,67,763 kilometers. Rural and other roads spanning over 26,50,000 kilometers. Expressways with the span of 1,208 kilometers. Classification of roads. In India, roadways are classified on the basis of their administration and capacity to handle loads. Golden Quadrilateral Superhighways. It is a major and vital road development project which has been launched by the Government of India with an objective to reduce the travelling time and distance between the mega cities of India. The project is being implemented by the National Highways Authority of India, NHAI. The project links Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai, Mumbai by 6-lane superhighways. The north-south corridors cover Srinagar to Kanyakumari. The east-west corridors cover Silchar to Porbandar. National highways. These highways are primary road systems that link extreme parts of the country. These highways are laid and maintained by the Central Public Works Department, CPWD. A large number of these highways run from north to south and east to west directions. Some important national highways are NH1, also called as Shah Suri Marg, connects Delhi to Amritsar and is one of the most popular highways. NH7 is the longest national highway with a length of 2,369 kilometers. It runs from Varanasi to Kanyakumari via Jabalpur, Nagpur, Hyderabad, Bangalore and Madurai. NH8 runs from Delhi to Mumbai. NH15 covers most parts of Rajasthan. State highways. These highways link the state capital to district headquarters. These highways are laid and maintained by the State Public Works Department. District roads. These roads connect the district's headquarters with other places of district and are maintained by the Zilla Parishad. Border roads. These roads are laid and maintained by Border Roads Organization, established in 1960. The main objective for their development is to provide easy accessibility to difficult terrains, especially in the border areas. These roads are of prime importance and hold strategic value in the border areas of North and northeastern states of India. Roads. These roads link rural areas and villages to towns. They have received special impetus under Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana. The main objective of this scheme is to link every village to a major town with motorable roads. Road transport is of prime importance in India due to several reasons, like the cost of constructing roadways is lower as compared to that of railway networks. Roads can be ramified easily and are easy to maneuver. Roads can negotiate higher gradients of slopes, including the mountains. Road transport is highly economical. It acts as a feeder and link to other modes of transport like airways, waterways, and railways.
Yes, I hope you got the maximum information about Indian roadway, isn't it? Yes. Move on to importance of roadways. The construction of road is economical, so it is the economically essential one, and it can traverse on distracted and undulating topology, and it can negotiate on the higher gradients of slopes. This provides door to door services and the feeders to other modes of transport. So how it is the feeders to other modes of transport? So if you want to take anything to the airport, you can take through the roadway, isn't it? Yes, this is how it is the feeder to other modes of transport. Now let's move on to railways. It can carry large number of people and heavy goods. It is suitable for long distance and cheap mode of transport. It is one of the cheap mode of transports. Introduction of super fast trains save time and well developed over the plains. Technical advancement have lead to expansion even into the difficult mountain terrains. Okay, and the world distribution of railways. The Europe has the densest railway network in the world. It has about 440,000 kilometers of railways, and most of them are double or multi tracked. The North America has the most extensive network of railways, that is about 40% of world's total. 90% of Russia's total transportation is by the railways. The next, Australia has about 40,000 kilometers of railways, of which 25% are found in New South Wales alone. See, by seeing this map, Russia map, you can understand the Trans-Siberian Railroad in the early 20th century. Yes, children, now let's watch a video and then let's continue the lesson. Shall we? Yes.
On 31st May 1891, Tsar Nicholas II laid the foundation stone near Vladivostok. It is the largest railway in the world that crosses territory of 20 regions of the Russian Federation. There are 89 cities located on the Trans-Siberian Railways, which crosses 16 large rivers during its journey. It passes through 7 time zones and takes 8 days to complete the journey. There are connecting links, namely to Odessa in Ukraine, Baku on the Caspian coast, Tashkent in Uzbekistan, Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, and Shenyang in Mukden, and Beijing in China. The railways reduced the time for cargo shipments by nearly 2/3. Containers from China to Finland on the Trans-Siberian take less than 10 days compared to 28 days by sea. The main route of the Trans-Siberian originates in St. Petersburg at Moskovsky Vokzal to Vladivostok. A second primary route is the Trans-Manchurian. It is a direct way from Russia to Beijing in China. The third primary route is the Trans-Mongolian Railway, which join Ulaanbaatar and Beijing. In 1984, a fourth route known as the Baikal-Amur Main Line, that is BAM, running further to the north was opened. The Trans-Siberian Railway's major rail route of Russia runs from St. Petersburg in the west to Vladivostok on the Pacific coast in the east. The main route of the Trans-Siberian originates in St. Petersburg at Moskovsky Rail Terminal. Moscow, Nizhny Novgorod. A few years ago, all trains would go from Moscow through Yaroslav and Kostroma and then join the Trans-Siberian route a few kilometers before Kirov. Now, only a few trains go through Yaroslav. Vladimir. It is a small ancient city along the Golden Ring. Nizhny Novgorod, Gorky. It is a big, vibrant industrial center of Volga region. Kotelnich. Here, Trans-Siberian meets with the old track that was going through Yaroslav. Kirov is a small industrial northern city and center of Kirov region. Perm. It is a big industrial town in the beginning of Ural Mountains. Ekaterinburg, Sverdlovsk. Ekaterinburg was founded in 1797 and now it is the unofficial capital of Ural region, the most industrial region of Russia. Tyumen. It is the center of Tyumen region, the oil and gas center of Russia. Omsk. Novosibirsk. It is the biggest city in Siberia region with 14,42,000 inhabitants. Krasnoyarsk, the center of vast Krasnoyarsk region known for the national park Stolby, just outside of the city. Taishev. Irkutsk. Ulan-Ude. Here you will feel like you are in Asia finally. Quite a nice mix of Russianness and Easternness. It is the capital of Buryatia Republic. Chita. It is a big industrial city. Skovorodino. A few kilometers before Skovorodino, there is a train line to Bam. Turndown. Belogorsk, Khabarovsk. This is a friendly Russian city on Amur River just next to China. Kotikovo is the closest part of the Trans-Siberian route to China. Vladivostok. The last stop of Trans-Siberian is Vladivostok. It covers 9,288 kilometers from Moscow and around 10,000 kilometers from St. Petersburg. Depending on the route taken, the distances from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok may differ by several tens of kilometers.